The cavern's silence was suffocating. The heavy air pressed against their lungs, thick with the scent of damp earth and decay. Kwame wiped the sweat from his brow, his hands trembling around the ceremonial staff he had wielded against the spirits. The walls of the underground chamber seemed to pulse, as if the very earth was alive, breathing in unison with the cursed energy of Nyoka. "We need to move," Amina whispered, her voice barely audible over the distant, echoing wails of the spirits they had barely escaped. "We don't know how long before they come back." Aid, still in his trance-like state, stood in the center of the chamber. His lips moved, murmuring in an ancient tongue. His fingers twitched unnaturally. It was as if he was being puppeteered by something unseen. Kwame grabbed his arm, shaking him. "Aid, snap out of it!" For the briefest moment, his clouded eyes flickered with recognition, his lips trembling. They're watching, they're waiting." Then, without warning, Aid let out a blood-curdling scream, his body convulsing as he dropped to his knees. The symbols on the altar flared to life, glowing with an eerie crimson light. The walls trembled, and the chamber's only exit, the yawning doorway ahead, began to shift and close, as if the very stone itself was sealing them in. "Run!" Kwame shouted. They barely made it through as the stone door slammed shut behind them, sending a shockwave of dust and debris through the air. They found themselves in a narrow passageway, the walls covered in claw marks, as though something had desperately tried to escape. The torches lining the corridor flickered, their flames casting long, grotesque shadows that seemed to move on their own. Amina took a deep breath, steadying herself. What is this place?" Kwame ran his hand over the claw marks. "This isn't a temple. It's a prison." A whisper floated through the air, curling around them like smoke. "Not a prison. A feeding ground." The voice was neither human nor spirit. It was something in between, something ancient, a force older than the village itself. A sudden bone-chilling shriek rang through the tunnel, growing louder as it echoed. Amina turned sharply, her breath hitching as something slithered out from the darkness ahead. A shadowy figure emerged, its form ever-shifting, its limbs elongated and jagged. It had no face, only a gaping void where its features should have been. It moved in disjointed jerks, its bones cracking with every unnatural step. It did not walk. It crawled, its elongated fingers scraping against the stone, leaving behind deep, burning grooves. Amina stumbled backward, clutching Kwame's arm. "What is that?" The figure tilted its head, its mouth splitting into an impossibly wide grin, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. It spoke, its voice a twisted chorus of whispers, overlapping and out of sync. "Welcome to Nyoka's embrace." The torches flickered and died, plunging them into absolute darkness. Then, the screams began. The darkness was absolute, but it was not empty. Something was moving, circling them, unseen, yet ever-present. Amina could feel the weight of it pressing against her skin, an oppressive force that whispered directly into her mind. Then, just as suddenly as they had been extinguished, the torches flared back to life. But the corridor around them had changed. The walls, once stone, now pulsed like living flesh. The ceiling dripped with thick black ichor, and the claw marks had vanished, replaced by deep gashes that oozed a crimson glow. "This place is shifting," Kwame muttered, his grip tightening around the ceremonial staff. "It's alive." Aid groaned, staggering forward. His hands trembled as he clutched his head. No. The path is closing. The path is changing. We must go. Now. The wails from earlier returned, but this time they were closer. The shadowy figure had multiplied. Dozens of them now filled the passage behind them, their grins stretching wider, their limbs twitching as they scuttled forward like grotesque insects. Amina screamed, "Run!" They sprinted, their feet pounding against the fleshy ground. The passage twisted and turned in ways that defied logic, leading them deeper into the nightmare. The whispers grew louder, the words incomprehensible, yet laced with hunger. The village had never been abandoned, the village had been consumed, and now it was consuming them. Just as their legs began to falter, they burst into another chamber. This one was unlike the last. Ornate carvings covered the walls, depicting a monstrous serpent devouring entire villages. In the center stood an obsidian throne, and upon it sat a figure cloaked in shadows, its hollow eyes staring straight through them. The torches flared again, revealing its face, a face they knew. Aid gasped. No, it can't be. It was the village chief, but he was supposed to be dead. And then he smiled. But this nightmare is far from over. What secrets does the village chief hide? And what horrors await in the depths of Nyoka's curse? Find out in part 4, where the truth behind the village's fate will finally be revealed.